Houseman says, Frankie Fihn, I have difficulty identifying the deal sources in my market. I help industry experts get more from the context or the content they already have. Our man Locken says, hey, Frankie Fihn, how do you track results when you were running your more motorcycle case service? Ryan says, looking for a very attractive lead magnet idea for a two-coastal local small HVAC company looking for more change outs and service work. All comments are very appreciated. What's up, everybody? I think we're live. Did that work? Yes, we're in. Excited to see you guys again. It is another week, another round of questions, another round of taking over the world. I don't know if you guys watched Pinky and the Brain growing up, but the old, what do you want to do tonight, Pinky? Same thing we do every night, Brain. Try and take over the world. So that's how I picture you guys evil scheming up cool ideas and things like that. By the way, when Ilke and I used to work together, we said whenever we would like plan and come up with ideas, when we called it just figuring stuff out, it sounded a lot less fun than evil scheming. So we have a notepad that says evil scheming, and that's how we do it. Wanted to give you guys a little heads up on something. I don't know if you guys have saw in those of you guys who are on the email list have seen it, which is we got an offer right now that I think is a game changer for people, and it's the shift from chasing clients one-to-one, which is doing what everybody else says, or spending a shit ton on Facebook ads and often losing money in the process, to instead finding where all the buyer flow is in your industry and creating partners and doing that one-to-many, which to me is a far more efficient way of doing it. And we've got the exact tools, templates, scripts, and all that kind of stuff so that you guys can follow that step by step. But there's a real magic to it, and I use this story in the copy, but it's kind of like it's true. When I was a kid, my first ever job was selling chocolate bars door to door, and 6 to 8 hours a day, we smash on some doors, and all I was looking to do back in those days, make $50 or $100 so I could buy candy, all the candy I wanted, rent movies and games at Blockbuster, and that was pretty much it. Like go to the movies. I was high on life, but 6 to 8 hours a day, you were knocking on doors, getting doors slammed in your face, and lots of rejection. About once a month, we would go to our local grocery store, and we would ask the manager, "Hey, we're selling chocolate bars for the blind. Is it okay if we sell outside the front doors?" And he would say, "Yeah." And so there were probably, I think, 4 main exits or entrances, exits, whatever you want to call them, and we'd put 2 kids at each door, and we'd sell out of chocolates in 10 or 15 minutes. And the reason is because, like, the grocery store has all the buyers, right? Like, people got in their car with the intention of spending money, and so, like, they even went there to spend food. And so when you kind of intercept them on the way, like, every kid would be sold out of chocolate in 10 or 15 minutes. So you can do this agency growth by 8-10 hours a day knocking on doors, or you can knock on one door strategically that has all the buyers and just intercept their sort of flow a little bit in a way where you're actually adding value to their audience. And get 10,000 buyers to come to you, which to me is a far more efficient way of doing it. So I've been sending some details on that, but you guys can find that in the store as well on beyondagencyprofits.com for those of you guys who are not on the email list. I would at least check it out because I think we have the exact tools, templates, scripts, everything laid out for you step by step. I first give like a high-level overview of the process, how all the pieces fit together, and then lay out, step by step how to actually find people, how to pitch them, what to pitch them on, all that kind of stuff. So hope that makes sense. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Fihn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. By the way, this little track I got going on in the background is 1990s Donkey Kong Country for Super Nintendo. This was one of the water levels, and I just love the music of it, so I still listen to it, I don't know, a bazillion years later. Helps me to work when I do stuff, and I don't know, I dig it. So if you guys can hear that in the background, that's what's going on. All right, Sean's up first. So RE, generalist to deep specialist. We're going to have to just rip the Band-Aid off here. I was going to ask you, how did you decide the verticals to go after? I didn't remember you saying specifically in your video in the courses I bought, but just had the bright idea to double check, so I loaded the transcription into ChatGPT and asked. And ChatGPT gave a Frankie Fihn answer. How cool is that? So this, I wanted to give something useful here for all of those of you guys who have built a generalist agency, and there was a little bit of back and forth in that conversation that you guys maybe aren't privy to, but Sean was saying that essentially, like, I rank for different keywords so people are contacting me. And what happens is sometimes along the journey, you build this like flow of incoming, and then you realize that you want to specialize and you don't like all of the work you're getting. So like for me, for example, in the beginning, like I was super stoked to get hired to build websites. Like that was like just getting paid money for it was super cool. And so like if somebody paid me $500 for a website, that was like woohoo. Give that like 6 months of building $500 websites, and that sounds like a bullet to the brain. Like the amount of work you got to do for $500 just sounds to me not at all worth it. And so one of the things that I would focus on in those journeys is like, how do I get the stuff I want? But the tricky thing is, like, if you've already made, $2,500 websites, sometimes people are contacting you and say, hey, I heard you're the $500 website guy, and you no longer want that work. So here is, to me, how it's worked for us to go from this generalist to specialist. The first thing I do is for all the work that I don't want, I went and found a list of people who do those things and want those things and will do a good job, so that whenever somebody would come to me, I would say, hey, we're actually choosing to specialize these days in these things. So I lined up a $500 website guy for you over here, and he's going to take care of you. And what will happen, by the way, is that website person is going to eventually get asked about the thing you do, and over time they will reciprocate and send that person back. So you're not like actually losing anything. But I found it a nice gateway, because a lot of times like it almost feels sacrilegious to say no to, you built up all this flow, you try to get all this incoming, and then people come and then you're turning them away. It almost felt sacrilegious, but if you have somebody to send them to and they're getting taken care of, that's going to be like good for you. And then this is probably the most important piece. Is a lot of times when people are thinking about going from generalist to specialist, they're looking for an industry they haven't already done something in. They're looking outside of themselves. They're going, maybe I should try plumbers. Or yeah, I hear plumbers got money. Or maybe I'm going to do chiropractors. Chiropractors seem cooler than anybody I'm dealing with. And almost always, it's not about that. It's about looking at the clients you already have and the work you've already done, and going, who would if I had more like this? How awesome would that be? How can I clone the people that I most want to get? And so it's more about cloning the incoming that you already have rather than trying to create something new from scratch. And so what that looks like is, if you did 10 websites and 3 Google pay-per-click campaigns and 14 Facebook ad clients and 1 Google pay-per-click, and the Google pay-per-click for a dentist just went really, really well, then go get more dentists and do more Google pay-per-click for more dentists, right? So it's the shift from when you're in a generalist, the one of the big issues is every time you do something once, you get paid once. And I actually had a mentor who said this to me, and this is the subject of the second book, which is getting very close to the finish line, by the way. But the mentor said to me, his name is Ken. Ken said to me, well, basically, I hung out with him in South Carolina for a long period of time, and I never saw the dude work ever. Here's a guy who's doing millions and millions of dollars a year. I think they were close to 8 figures, a little bit under it. And he was just at the beach all day long, and he was golfing and he was fishing. I was like, Ken, when do we do the work? And he said, well, buddy, basically I like to do things where I can do them once and get paid for it again and again. So every time he created something, he was creating it for the purposes of reusing it so he could get paid multiple times. Now, when he said that, it was it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I realized I had a lot of things that were due once, get paid once. I had a lot of incoming, but all of it, if I took my foot off the gas, would go to zero. And I had nothing that was due once, get paid twice. Everything I had was due once, get paid once. So when you're a generalist, that's how your life is. It's due once, get paid once. When you switch to a specialist, you tend to reuse things, and so you're making the shift from doing once to getting paid twice. So the reason I say that is because you've already done the thing once for somebody. Maybe it's a dentist you did pay-per-click for, or maybe it's a website you built. Now you're just thinking about, how can I reuse that thing to get paid for it again and again? And so chances are, what always has helped me is I take an inventory of my clients, literally on a pen and paper, and I look for my best clients and my worst clients, and I see what they have in common. And almost always it comes down to just a couple of things. One of those is their attitude. So I'm like, what kind of attitudes do I want to screen for? It comes down to their situation. And then lastly, did I actually have life experiences that will benefit them? Right? In the case of dentists, I haven't done a ton of stuff with dentists, but my mom spent 23 years in a dental office, so I know more about dentists than other industries. Compare that to roofers. I don't know anybody who ever built roofs. I'm probably going to have a harder time connecting with those people. So it's really just those 3 things, is thinking about all your clients you've ever had and the ones you love the most and love the least, and looking at the ones you love the most and going, what were their attitudes in common? What were their situations? What was the life experience I brought to the table? And then cloning those people in a do once, get paid twice. So it's like I said, it's not creating new stuff. It's taking stuff you've already built and going, how do I do more of this on purpose? And that's how, at least for us, it has benefited to make that transition from the old generalist to specialist and getting paid twice for the stuff you're already doing. Cool. Next question we got. Mohit says, hey, Frankie Fihn, your book is marvelous and the exact content I was looking for. Thank you. A question for Monday's Q&A. When you send a personalized outreach and say something like, let me try running an email campaign for you and pay me after it gets the results, do you mention the percentage commission you would like to charge, or do you discuss these things after the results? Also, is 35 to 50% a good, fair commission? This is assuming I'm a total newbie and have no results to show for. Cool, my dude. So there's a couple of things that are kind of like pitfalls built into that you may just want to watch out for. So one of those is we don't actually want to offer revenue shares to anybody and everybody willy-nilly. In the beginning, it seems like a good idea to just start offering revenue share deals, but you actually want to hand select the partners. And I have a video, by the way, on our YouTube called Less But Better Agency Lead Generation. Less But Better Agency Lead Generation. The channel's called Beyond Agency Profits. So you can go to YouTube, type in Less But Better Agency Lead Generation. You will find it. But it lays out how to kind of like do less overall, like contacting people, but be very specific about who you contact and kind of get them in the door. And it's kind of using the principles of, firstly, is that there's an 80-20 in your market. So like I mentioned this the other day, but if you could take 100 people in your industry and put them in a room, 80 of those people would have very little money collectively between them. There would be like 20% of your total market space would be in those 80 people. 15 or 20 of them would be doing relatively well, and there would be one guy who had more money than the other 99 put together. There's like an 80-20 within the 80-20. So the goal, first of all, like when you're quote-unquote pitching people, is to identify the people who can actually like use it and win. That's the first thing. Because I see this, like sometimes like bad clients will recommend revenue share deal. They'll say, well, I got screwed by 7 marketing companies in a row. Why don't you do it for free, big boy? And then if it works, I'll pay you. And that sounds like a good idea on the surface, but it's a terrible idea because what you'll find is they have no sales processes, they don't have a good reputation, they don't follow up with people, they don't know how to close, on and on and on. You'll just they have bad staff, they got turnover. It'll just uncover all those other issues. As where the revenue share model works really, really good when you're helping people who are already winning long before you showed up, and you're just helping to amplify their winning. You're helping winners win more. So half the battle is identifying people who are most winning at the game of business in your marketplace. That is step one that precedes even pitching it. If you miss that step, everything that comes after, your life will be miserable. Now, as far as like, do you pitch them the whole thing on step one? This is the thing I think a lot of people get wrong when it comes to talking to strangers in general, is that sometimes you have to show a little bit of restraint in message number one. Like I get these copy and paste verbal diarrhea, what I call buy my shit kind of automated messages, as I'm sure all of you guys do. But you know, just being publicly visible, I get more than them of most people. And here's the thing, okay? All business is relationships. So like I'm going to use a cheesy romantic relationship, but say you wanted to get married to a girl in the same way that you want to get married to a client and, you know, work with them long term. If I walked up to you off the street and said, hey, beautiful, I would like to marry you, and I would like to move into the suburbs over here, and I want you to introduce you to my mom and my dad, and we're going to live here on this dead-end street, and it's a quiet little street, and we're going to have 2.2 children, and we're going to do an annual vacation every year to Disneyland. Like, even if she likes me and thinks I'm, like, interesting or cute or whatever, like, that's going to be a lot too quickly to digest in a single, like, hey, I just met you coming on too strong. So there's a tendency in most people when it comes to like having conversations with strangers to want to dump the whole thing on them, and you shouldn't do that. And much better as an opener in a relationship is like, hey, you seem cool and interesting. You look like you're walking that way. Could we just talk for a minute or two? Because I'm really interested by, you know, the notepad you're handing in your hand. What's that for? Are you in school? Right? Like, that's a better opening than, hey, I want to marry you. And ironically, if you can show restraint, you'll actually get married more often because people will want to date you. And so what happens is when it comes to messaging strangers, most people want to go right to hit the home run, make the sale, tell them all the details, start to finish in the thing. But I think actually the first step in any high ticket sale is curiosity, where they say, okay, maybe I'll do the Star Trek one. They want to go, hey, they want to go like tell me more about it. They don't always say it in that way, but that's what curiosity is. That sounds interesting. Tell me more about it. Sure, go ahead, send some info, right? That's how all high-ticket sales begin. And so usually the restraint is our messages are so retardedly simple that I think people have a hard time following them. But this is how I open doors over and over again. I say something personalized and specific about them, and then I say I had an idea to do blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested in that? And if they say, I'd be interested in that, I say, hey, can I just send a little video on that? That's it. Like that's the whole pitch. But there's a real magic in doing it that softly. And I learned this, by the way, from a guy named Ari Gelper. And he used to do a lot of cold calling. And one of the things Ari Gelper said is there is a script that cold callers unconsciously follow that lets you know you're going to be cold pitched some shit you didn't ask for. And it sounds like this. They say when somebody calls up on the phone, they go, hey, my name's Frankie. I'm calling from company XYZ, and the reason I'm calling today is because of blah, blah, blah. And he says, even before you finish that sentence, they already know you're going to pitch them something, and so their guard and their defenses are up. And he said, on the contrary, when customers contact people, they don't do that. Customers don't say, hey, I'm Frankie Fihn, I'm calling from my house, and the reason I'm calling today is I want to know what your hours are. They just say, hey, quick question, what time are you guys open till? Or they'll say, I saw a sale on the blah, blah, blah. Do you guys still have it in blue? Right? That's how customers talk. They don't introduce themselves. They don't start pitching you. And so he said, if you want your random cold stuff to land more frequently, mirror the language of the customer because people will be more open, less defensive, and more open to hearing you. So a lot of my stuff is like really just like, hey, dude, saw you at the baseball game. That seemed really cool. Had an idea to help you do blank. Is it cool if I shoot over a little video with what I had in mind? Like that's the whole message, 3 sentences. But the magic is what makes it work. It's about them. It's about what they're trying to do. It's soft. It's casual. It's appropriate for, hey, we just met each other. You know, I don't expect us to get married on the first date. Now, as far as is your commission correct? It'll depend on your industry. I always shoot for 30 to 50% of profits. So, for example, when I do this with friends who got digital courses, if they got a $100 course, I'm asking for $50, right? Because that's $50, that's their margin. Now, we have people doing this in the roofing industry, for example. They may sell a $400,000 commercial roof, but like they have labor, they have material costs. They're not keeping $400K. They might keep like 30 to 50K. So I would ask for 30 to 50% of the 30 to 50K. So the percentage you're asking for, typically I aim for 30 to 50%, but it's based on what they're actually keeping, like the profit margins, if you will. It's not unreasonable to ask for 30 to 50% of profits that they're actually keeping. So hope that's helpful, my dude, and for anybody else in a similar situation. Adrian, and this is a fantastic question, by the way. Adrian says, Frankie Fihn, how long do you wait before you contact a shoe store if they don't respond to a previous message? So I'm going to give you guys a 50-50 on this because I believe 50% of it is the mindset of like what Dusan Dukovic would call your internal stance, which is where are you coming from when you message somebody, not just the message itself. And then the second thing is, the actual strategies and the tactics that come out of that. So I'll share both of those. But first, I want to share the mindset piece to you guys because I think this will be most useful. When most people message strangers, they are of the attitude, I'm trying to sell my thing. It's just a numbers game, and message more people is the solution to doing it. And so what ends up happening is you see out of this, people say, I need D7 laid screen scrapers and scripts and automation and tools and go high level, and how you got to warm up email servers and all kind of this madness that I personally don't recommend. You know, if you guys want to do that, whatever. I'm not. It's your business. You get to build it how you want. So like. And to backtrack a step, by the way, for those of you guys who are listening to this and are not even really familiar with the question, Adrian is asking a question essentially is, how do we contact partners rather than contacting clients one-to-one? And how frequently should we do that? And I'll give you an example. Like when I used to work in the legal industry, I found out that lawyers tend to get referrals, like injury lawyers specifically, would get referrals from a couple places. So one of those places is chiropractors. Another one of those was physiotherapists. Another one of those were auto body shops. And there's a few more, but those are like probably the three biggest ones. And the reason is because if somebody got in a car accident, there's almost two things they inevitably do. One is they go get medical treatment, and two is they go get their car fixed. So if they're getting their car fixed, all their potential people are like all getting their cars repaired. So like partnering with an auto body shop just made a lot of fucking sense for them, right? And what I found is like you could advertise for clients one-to-one and put your messaging out there. We're the greatest attorney. Or you could try and convince one auto body shop, and there's far less competition for that. And when you get that auto body shop, they wouldn't just send you one person. They'd send you like 3 a day, every day, like repeatedly, month out. And you could do millions of dollars with one auto body shop. And you can do this with 20 of them, 100 of them. And same thing with like the physiotherapists and the chiropractors. So when I realized this, I'm like, I always like looked at it like getting partners to me is a more sophisticated way of generating agency business and scaling than doing all the one-to-one stuff that people suggest that you do. And when you get a partner, it's often easier than getting a client one-to-one, and they tend to stick around. Like they tend to send you a lot of business, not just one time. We have somebody in our mastermind right now that, like just a few months ago got their first partner, and now they're on track to do $1 million a year with that partner, and it's just going to keep going, right? That partner is just going to keep sending them people because they're still in business, and they see, just like a person in a car accident goes to get their car fixed, they need an injury attorney too. Like they see them first and they keep sending them your way. Like that's just a very harmonious relationship. So Adrian is at the point now where he's pitching these partners. And what we found is those partners, for the most part, struggle with creating content. I've been part of an industry association in the personal injury space. And behind the scenes, like, hey, our writer bailed last minute. What are we going to publish in the magazine? Hey, we got a webinar next Tuesday. What are we going to say in the webinar? We don't have a podcast episode this week. Who are we going to put on the podcast? We're still looking for 2 speakers to fill up our live event. Do we got anybody who can come to Dallas? Right? Those are behind the scenes. And so if you understand that, the way to contribute to partners is to show up and help them with their content issue and show people the ideas you do for free, knowing you'll get paid on the implementation. So for example, I was just talking to Zane this morning. He's got an AI software that helps people create case studies as blog posts in their marketplace, and then it gives Google what they want, and people stumble on those case studies and they hire you, right? Well, if he teaches people how to generate business with case studies in his industry for free, and then they want to use case studies, who do you think they're going to get it from, right? So we give the ideas away for free and get paid on the implementation. So I want to give that backstory for everybody because not everybody understands where Adrian is coming from in this question. So the mindset part that is different, as I mentioned, everybody else is doing this. I need to sell my shit. It's a numbers game. And what we're after with a partner, and it sounds like a crazy idea that not many marketers are really thinking about, but we're actually after a real relationship with a partner. Like a real relationship. Somebody that we actually know and respect and want to help their business, and they help ours, and that like there's mutually beneficial reasons to be cool to each other, right? So if you're after a real relationship, your whole mindset is different, your whole approach. And so firstly, as far as frequency, I usually personally every 2-3 days. I'm not here to hound them, but I'm also like annoyingly persistent. And I'll tell you why, because I've been on the other side of it and I just know how busy they are. And I know how easy it is for stuff to get lost in their inbox. They can be in a meeting and get 20 requests while they're sitting in the meeting, and they see those but can't respond to them in the moment and forget about it. So you have to be a little bit pleasantly persistent. Also, like, because these are movers and shakers and get a lot of messages, not just from like people selling them stuff, but employees are asking them for stuff. Their clients are asking them for stuff. Like, they just get a lot of incoming, right? So pleasantly persistent. So for me, that's every like 2-3 days. And also like assume they're busy because they are. And most likely the reason they didn't respond is not because they're not interested. Like for me, I get stuff incoming. Sometimes I'm with my kids. I see it. I can't respond. If you don't nudge me 2 or 3 days later, like I'll probably forget. That's just being real with you. So if you send me a nudge, this is important. Like it's not seen as an annoyance. So as far as that is the frequency. Now also, I'll tell you some things that will help accelerate a relationship with a partner. The first thing that will help you accelerate a relationship with a partner is actually connect with them as a human. So, like, for example, I think about like some of the partners I have in the restoration space now. Like, I know Jeff, who publishes the industry magazine and, you know, puts on a bunch of conferences. I know he's a granddad. I see his little nieces and nephews on Facebook. I only know that because I'm interested in a relationship. So, like, actually connect with them on social media. And I'll give you a tool or a process that will speed that up faster. And I'll give you the kind of the reasoning why behind it, because if you understand this, you'll be really good. I noticed years ago that most of the people you did not want to message you that mentally got categorized as spam had exactly one way to reach you. One single way, right? Like usually an email or an Instagram or a Facebook DM or something like that. And that's for people that you don't want to talk to. They usually have one way to message you, and that's it. They send one and done, and they kind of like, they just put it more places. Now, people you actually do want to message you, and I'm sure you guys have experienced the same phenomena I have. Like my friends have multiple ways. Like some of my closest friends, they got an email for me. They got a WhatsApp. They got me on Facebook. We're friends on LinkedIn. We got like Telegram. I don't really use Twitter, but we're probably following each other on Twitter. And so there's like 6, 7, like, and also they might have my phone number. They can call me. Like there's multiple ways to reach each other. And I realized this. I would experience this, by the way, like when people consume my stuff, I can tell how serious they are about like, you know, making a move. Because sometimes I'll see like, I'll get an email from somebody. I'll get a message from them on YouTube. You know, get a Facebook message from the same person. That's 3 different media. So I know that person really actually genuinely wants to like connect with me and consume my stuff. So if you're really after a relationship, friend them lots of places on all the different media and actually like engage with their shit. Leave comments like, hey dude, like cool. Seems like a cool day out with the kids. I know it sounds like overly simple, but you'd be amazed because everybody else is just thinking, how do I mass sell my thing? What's the perfect messaging? And instead, if you're after a real relationship with a partner, you can accelerate those things, friend them lots of places, comment on their stuff, and every 2 to 3 days, send them a little nudge. A friendly nudge, by the way. Hey, dude, like seems like this got lost in the inbox shuffle, but I'd still love to really write a magazine article for you. I'd still love to create a podcast with you. I'd still love to do. And so if you do that, your stuff will not be seen as annoying, and you can do it very, very frequently. So I hope that helps answer the question, Adrian, and also for anybody else interested, because I'm a bigger believer, like, why chase business one-to-one when there's so many fucking partners? Like, you can build $1 million or $10 million law firm with 6 fucking chiropractors. Why do you need to market to 100 clients when you can just have relationships with 6 people that send you all the business? So it's up to you how you want to do that. Not telling you guys what to do, but I believe it's a far more efficient way of doing it. And I also believe it's easier because everybody else is trying to chase it one-to-one. Very few people are actually trying to build real relationships that are strategic in nature. Jay Abraham talks about this. A strategic business, by the way, will crush a tactical business all day, every day. My man Cole says, I often respond to Frankie all over, even though I'm usually just talking out of my ass. I'm usually talking out of my ass too, Cole, so don't sweat that. But exactly, like, Cole and I, like, I want to talk to Cole. So, like, that's why he can message me on Instagram sometimes get an email, sometimes a Facebook message. And I comment on his shit. He comments on my shit because we actually want to talk to each other, right? So treat your partners that way, right? Like, treat your partners as, like, people that you actually, like, you know, are not just trying to sell your wares to, but as somebody you actually like, hey, this could be a really good relationship for both of us for a long time. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Sounds crazy, but I know those internet marketers have invented new systems where you don't have to talk to people and actually like the people you sell to. Demetrius says, hey, Frankie, I have a question for Monday's Q&A shenanigans. Shenanigans is the correct word for why we're here. It says, how often should agencies email their lists, which might include people from various sources such as event signups and lead magnets? Some say you should email daily to weekly, while others only when they have something relevant to share, sometimes with weeks, months, or between emails. What approach do you believe is best? So, Demetrius, I think there's there's probably a couple of layers to this, okay? Layer number 1 is nobody talks about this, but the expectation you set in your opening email determines a lot of what you're allowed to do. So, somebody signs up for my list, I tell them in message number 1 how often you're going to hear from me. Sounds crazy, right? But I tell you, like, this is how often you're going to hear from me. Well, all of a sudden now, it's not a shock later when you get that many messages from me, right? Whether that's less frequently or more frequently. Like, if I say I'm going to email you once a week, then you're going to expect once a week. If I say I'm going to email you every day, then you're going to expect something every day. If I say I'm going to send you something twice a month, you're going to expect twice a month. If I say I'm going to only message you when I got something cool to say to you, you're going to expect whenever you got something cool to say to me. So it's based on that kind of fluctuating detail. Is that I learned this a lot just selling SEO. SEO is like entirely people's happiness with your SEO is entirely based on the expectations you set. The same is true for email. It's like it's very much they'll accept as many emails. Now, one important piece that I wanted to say is how frequently should you email people? If you email more frequently, there is going to be a small segment of people on your list that are going to be annoyed by you and pissed off by you. And what most people's immediate tendency is to optimize for the people who give the least fuck about you. So like, let's just say, easy number, you got 100 people on an email list. 10 of them probably love your shit and read everything you say. 10 of them probably are like, what did I even sign up for this bullshit for? And 80 of them are on some spectrum in the middle. Well, if you start sending a lot of emails, there's going to be 10 people who are going to be like, fuck this guy or fuck this girl. Like, why are you always sending me shit? And they may even reply and send you nasty shit. I never understood why people can't just click unsubscribe, but they got to be like, fuck you, asshole. You can suck my cock, right? I had a lawyer once unsubscribe from my message and say, how many times do I got to click the damn unsubscribe button? It was written in all capitals with like 8 exclamation points. And I replied like that was the first message I had ever received from that lawyer. So obviously on his end, like the tech wasn't working. But I said you have to push the button an extra time for every time you're an asshole to a stranger on the internet. Now, there's a tendency you get a response from one like really aggravated asshole, like, I'm emailing too much, I better slow down. These people fucking hate me. But you're actually optimizing for the bottom 10% of your people who like you the least, and they're probably like going to be miserable with or without you, instead of optimizing for your super fans and the people who love you the most, right? Usually your super fans almost can't even like hear from you ever too much. So that's the second piece, is like optimize for the people who actually do want to hear from you. And then the third piece, the answer to the question, in my experience, is as often as you got something cool to say. If that for you is like you can send you have something cool to send daily. I have marketing friends, by the way, in some industries where they email their list 2 to 3 times a day, every day. Every day, 2 to 3 times a day. That's a lot for me personally. I'm more like a once a day, once every other day kind of guy, because I feel like I have some cool ideas here and there. But the real answer is like pick a frequency that works for you, but always make sure you're adding to your list, not taking. So if it's always like a buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit, you're emailing too much. If it's like, hey, I found this cool thing, here's how it works, and if you want these tools to help you, like you can get them here. Like you can never send too many of those. So I'm telling you, I must send an email once every day or two, and I've done the same in the attorney space, and it's worked for us. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, but I believe you can get away with more if you have expectations, if you optimize for the people who love you, not your haters, and then really focus on, just add it. If you add value in that process, you can do it a lot more often, a lot more frequently. And the way I do that is really, really simple, by the way. When you're emailing lawyers or dentists or doctors or e-commerce or whatever, doesn't matter. Share ideas for free and make your money on the implementation. So like tell people how they can do cool stuff with or without you, and they'll get value from the ideas. And then if they need help getting it done, they're going to pay you for that, right? And it's like the easiest way to be valuable to an audience is like, so if you do SEO, show them how to rank their website without you. Show them everything that they would need to do, and so they get number one in their market, how to get reviews, and chances are a percentage of them will go, fuck that, I don't want to do that. Can I just pay you to do that? Next question, we got Jouspin says, Frankie Fihn, I have difficulty identifying the deal sources in my market. I help industry experts get more from the context or the content they already have. So here's the deal. If you're having a hard time identifying who are the partners in your space, it's almost always because your niche or your vertical is so vaguely defined, like as in this case, that you just can't really be clear about who it is you're going after. Right? Like if I say I'm going after left-handed golfers with a slice, it's going to be easier to find golfing partners. If I say I'm going after athletes, in my head I'm like, well, who do I want as partners? That becomes a vague, kind of incomplete idea. So in your case, like just going deeper on who the industry influencers that you actually want, that's still too wide. Go deeper on that will help. Now, as far as how I found them, a lot of this I just found out from like prior to COVID, there was like a 3-4 year period in the legal space where I went to a lot of fucking conferences, a lot of them. Like sometimes, not every weekend, but a lot of weekends. There's some event, I'm flying to it. We're talking about blah blah blah. And I'm either speaking or networking or whatever, or helping facilitate it. And so, like, there were a lot of fucking events. What happens is, after a while, you start seeing the same people at every conference. And I just I don't know, I'm very curious about how finance works and money flow and the game of business. And so I noticed that you just start seeing the same motherfuckers, and you're going, well, how much is a booth, out of curiosity here? Because if you're facilitating the event, you're not paying for the booth, but they're like, oh, it's $5,000. And what about hotels and expenses? Well, probably another $2,000. So you invested $7,000 to come to this weekend, and they're like, yeah. And you do all of the events. You drop $7,000 every weekend, and they're like, yeah. And so you're spending $30,000 a month just on going to conferences, yeah. And then you do math, obviously they're making more than $30,000. They're not doing that out of charity. There must be some kind of return. And so I started to notice when I saw the same people over and over again, I was like, what else is working in our industry? What are people buying? And I ultimately came to realize that there are at least 7 categories, 7 that I've identified. Maybe there's more. But I noticed there were what I call the expertise. So there were people selling coaching and masterminds and, courses and things like that. And then there were the people who were doing what I call content curators. So somebody put out the YouTube channel in that space, and somebody made the podcast, and somebody wrote the book, and somebody had the industry magazine, the content curators were in there. Then I noticed there were communities. There were people who had communities, usually on Facebook and LinkedIn, sometimes other places. Sometimes they were in real life communities, and there were self-organizing communities in there. Then I noticed there were industry associations. So in legal, that was the National Trial Lawyers and the California State Bar Association and the Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association. Then I noticed that they also bought software and tools, right? A lot of in my case, CRM providers went to the events, and people who helped them measure certain things and different things like that. They would have software and tool providers. And then I noticed as well, there were other people who put on real events, workshops, conferences, things like that. And then obviously there were our people, the marketing services. There were, the SEO and the pay-per-click and the Facebook ads and so forth. I started to notice those 7 categories of people. And more often than not, all those people were also putting out content. And so I just looked at those as opportunities to collaborate with them. So if you're missing where can I find partnerships? It's a twofold thing. Get specific on who you're trying to get partnerships from, and then it's only in those 7 places. And if you guys need to, I have a document that you guys can get, a Google document that has these types of things organized, but it's super easy. Our man, Red Ant. That's a cool name, if that's your real name, by the way. If that's not just a Facebook alias, you got the coolest name in history, which is way cooler than me. He says, hey, Frankie, I went through the recurring revenue course twice, and I have these questions in my mind. 1, you said it's an easy yes, but I don't see how it's an easy yes for the content creators because you are the one managing the cash, so they'll fear they've been duped. 2, browsing YouTube, I find it difficult to figure out what things people in my feed are buying. 3, I also think the pinned comment has little reach. 4, you talk a little bit about finding products, so I'm completely blurred on that part. Okay. Let's handle these one at a time. So let's start with number 1. You said it's an easy yes, but I don't see how it's an easy yes for the content creators because you are the one managing the cast, so they'll fear they've been duped. There is a tendency, by the way, when you are yourself a single solo operator and you have no team and you're just getting started, almost always you do not have a lot of cash to work with. And so there's a tendency to make all your decisions in what conserves cash. And you actually, by the way, almost always bleed away your most valuable resources, which are time and energy, which are in finite amount. Money is nearly infinite. They print more of it every goddamn second of every day. But your time and energy, you're going to run out of life and eventually realize that you do not have infinite time and energy. So that's a conversation for another day. But what happens is when you're in that stage, it just makes sense to save a penny every chance you can get. And so, for example, one of the things I see a lot of solo internet marketers, if they can steal a course online or cut somebody out of a deal, they do it because it only makes sense to save a penny, right? Because the pennies matter at that moment, right? But what happens is you reach a level in business where it no longer even makes sense to do anything yourself. And you use your money to buy back your time. There's a book by Dan Martell actually called Buy Back Your Time that is about that very idea, that the point of hiring people. So for example, if I go to a law firm and they have 100 people working there, there is zero incentive for them to rip off my system and keep it in-house and save a penny because it's not the dollars and cents that matter, it's the time invested in energy to do it. So I say that to you because there's a tendency to think that everybody thinks like you and is worried about, hey, they'll steal a penny and cut me out. And I promise you that's more in your thinking than in reality. And also, I would further add that you're approaching these people as a buyer, not as a seller, which is a very different conversation. If you approach a stranger about a marketing service and you essentially say, like, buy my shit, I'm not saying that can't be done, but it's a difficult conversation. If you approach somebody and you say, I'd like to pay you money for what you created, it's a very, very different conversation. And so for the most part, like, you have to have the attitude of a real win-win where, like, I'm going to create a bigger pie for both of us and we're each going to get 50% of the more pie that I'm going to create. And if that's the case, it really doesn't make sense for anybody to fuck anybody in that deal, right? Like, for example, if I'm keeping all the money and screwing them, they're just going to remove my links and take me off their channel, right? Like, it's their channel. It's very easy for them to kick me off of there. So if I'm, like, screwing them in that deal, it's ultimately me who's going to lose, not them, right? So it doesn't even make sense to try and screw anybody over in that deal. So you have to really approach this from a win-win and go, like, and I'll tell you, this comes up in other areas, Red. I have people in, like, some of the revenue share deal stuff, and they always ask me about tracking and how do I make sure I'm not getting screwed. And it's really just about getting the right partners, because I've had, like, when we first came up with, like, years ago, by the way, I was doing pay per lead before pay per lead had a name, and we were testing all that. And one of the things that I found out when we did pay per lead in the very early days, we had perfect tracking. So we were doing this for roofers, and I remember, like, some of the calls were hilarious, but I had every call recorded. Back in those early days, we had, like, a custom Twilio thing, a doohickey. Somebody else obviously made it, clearly, because I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. But we had a Twilio doohickey that could record all the calls, and so I could listen to all the calls. So I had 100% perfect tracking, and none of those fuckers paid me. None of those fuckers, because, like, they were just bad partners. The flip side of that is I have a partner right now on like a course / masterminds thing, and I have zero tracking in place. It would be the easiest thing in the world for them to fuck me, and yet every time I help them, we both make money, so they just pay me without me asking. No tracking. I just get a message that says, hey, you made 10 grand. Okay, cool. And I get 10 grand. Well, I don't have to go hunt them down. I don't have to go tracking, and there's no fear that either of us are going to screw each other because it's mutually beneficial. So you have to really approach these things internally like you're actually trying to mutually benefit people. And so if somebody actually asks you and says, how do I know you're not going to screw me? You go, how do I know you're not going to just take down my links? Like, it doesn't make sense for both of us. Like, I'm trying to bring you a revenue stream, and I just want a cut of that revenue stream. As long as you're making money, I'm making money. Let's nobody screw anybody. Our man Paul is here. What's up, Paul? So that's the first part, is, like, I promise you, like, the getting screwed is way less of an issue. And even if you do get screwed, there's only 8 trillion other channels that are open to this idea, by the way. Secondly, he says, browsing YouTube, I find it difficult to figure out what things people in my feed are buying. So I don't want you to think about this as your feed, but think about very specific channels. So, like, for example, if there's a channel on gardening, right? So, like, say they got videos about how to grow the tallest tomatoes. The question to ask yourself is, like, if somebody is, like, watching a video about how to grow tomatoes, what else goes with that? And I'll tell you, just off the top of my head, and this is kind of a practice, so I don't know how to easily teach this people, but chances are they're buying tomato seeds, right? Like, if you're growing tomatoes, you need a way to put a seed in the ground, and they might not just want a regular seed too. They might want, like, an organic heirloom, super old fancy tomato, right? Or an aroma tomato from Italy, or whatever, a San Marzano from California. Then there is also, like, those people probably buy dirt. They got to fill bags of dirt, and they got to make pots, and they got to water the thing, and they probably have gardening gloves and tools and trowels. And so there's just 8 different things related to gardening. I had a friend of mine came to me with a awesome motorcycle channel. It's just something he does for fun. He's got a video editing business, and he goes around and drives around on his adventures around Mexico, like, shooting motorcycle stuff. Super cool dude. And I remember asking him, like, how is his channel doing? And he has almost 500,000 people there watching it and doesn't make any money from it. And he was like, I don't even really know how I would monetize it. And I'll tell you, as my head thinks about this, well, if somebody is watching a video about motorcycles, they're probably into motorcycles, if I had to guess. So chances are they probably buy motorcycle helmets. They probably buy motorcycle gear. They probably buy actual motorcycles. They probably go on motorcycle retreats. They probably have like decals and things you paint on motorcycles. They probably buy motorcycle specialty parts, etc., 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 right? So your goal is not to try and figure out what to sell people. It's to look at individual channels and just be asking yourself, what else would they buy? And if you're not sure, by the way, the person I would ask is ChatGPT, because I bet you ChatGPT could give you a really good answer to that. If you said, hey, this is a motorcycle channel, I want to know what else they're buying, or this is a gardening channel, I want to know what else these people are probably buying, it probably got quite a set of answers for you. Third, he says, I also think the pinned comment has little reach. I can tell you just from our own shit, I sell a lot of shit in pinned comments, so I don't know. I don't know to tell you. It works for us. I would try it rather than assume it. Like, too many times we think about how it'll be instead of just trying it and finding out for ourselves. And then he says, you talked about finding the products, so I'm completely blurred out on that part. Okay, so I'm writing more about this in book 2, just so you guys know like how all this works, but there are 2 things to kind of creating this passive automated recurring income, and I'm going to go into more detail in the book, but no. So part 1 is sorry, I got a phone call that interrupted my music. Part 1 is distribution. Somebody who has an audience of people who pay attention to them. And part 2 are, like, as you mentioned, like products and services, what I would call offers. So there's distribution and offers. And the ironic thing is, distribution or offers need distribution, and distribution needs offers. And yet, never the two shall meet without you. And so for example, like if you got a thing you're selling and you're selling it well, what you just need is more eyeballs to it. In other words, distribution or audiences, right? Like using the tomato garden audience example, the people making the tomato videos that have the entire audience of gardeners generally do not know the people who make offers in that exact same space. They don't know the tomato seed person. They don't know the fancy trowel. They don't know the dirt person. They don't know the pots. They don't know the heirloom seed. They don't know the fertilizer person. They don't know the organic spray to get rid of the bugs person, etc., etc., etc. So your job is just to be a sophisticated middleman and bring them together. And so the way we do that is really twofold. Is on one side, you talk to the audience and say, and you audience owner, you say, I'd like to help you monetize your stuff, and I just want a cut of the sales or a percentage of whatever sponsorships I bring you. And the way to bring the offers there is to say, got a big fat audience of people that I think would be perfect to sell your stuff to. Could we work out a deal? It almost always both sides are happy to play ball in my experience in that. So if you're struggling to find products, like I would, again, give that to ChatGPT and say, like, what else are these people already buying? That is the key. Your job is not to try and figure out what would I sell them. Your job is to figure out what are they already buying that we could then put together a better offer for and get paid. So, for example, it could be this easy. Hey, all the people watching the tomato videos want heirloom organic tomato seeds. Well, then you go to the organic tomato seed place and you say, hey, we got 1.2 million fucking gardening people that watch tomato videos, and we'd love to sell your shit. Is there any way we could put together a deal and do some kind of special for them, and I get a kickback in that process? And they'll say to you, yeah, actually, we could do a 2-for-1 special for all your people, and we'll be happy to pay you 25% on all sales. All right. Now all of a sudden, pin comment. Hey, if you like this tomato video, we also got 2-for-1 organic heirloom seeds here. Use my code, and that's it. That's it. That's the whole thing, right? So it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. So I would just say try that. You'll have some fun with that, because for real, it's pretty amazing that both parties each need you and cannot talk to each other without you. Our man Locken says, hey, Frankie Fihn, how do you track results when you were running your more motorcycle case service? So I'll tell you, when it comes to tracking results, almost always people assume a technology solution, and I believe the best way to track is with an offer solution. So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm helping a pizza restaurant to sell some of their stuff, their pizzas in this case. Well, if they come in and say, like a lot of pizza restaurants, especially the ones that aren't like big chains like Domino's and Pizza, like the mom and pop places, very rarely even have offers at all. They just say, large pizza $20. 1 topping, 21, 3 toppings, 23, 5 toppings, and you just pick, mix and match and pick your own thing. If I help them do something more to like the chains do and say, hey, let's do a 2 large pepperoni, a large Coke, and some chicken wings for $34.99. I don't know if that's even a right price or not. I live in Mexico, so my price index the last 3 years is probably out to lunch. But point being is that now we have a specific offer. Well, if somebody calls on the phone and says, hey, I'm interested in your 2 pizzas, large Coke, and chicken wings. Let's say it's for the Super Bowl. Let's make it a Super Bowl special. Somebody calls and says, hey, I'm interested in that Super Bowl special you guys got. Where did that business come from? Right? It could only have come from you. Right? So almost always people assume a technology solution of like, hey, let's get a tracking phone number and this and Google Analytics. I'm not saying all those things don't work. But man, I found it way more simpler. Like, just come up with a custom offer. And then anytime somebody gets that offer, had to come from you. There's nowhere else it could come from. So in the case of our motorcycle stuff, getting specific on the question you asked, for the most part, we just had a tracking phone number. But they were not running any motorcycle stuff. So it was unusual for people to call them up and say, hey, I'm interested in, getting your motorcycle case service, right? So whenever they did call, like, it had to come from us. In the same way, like, hey, we were interested in your Super Bowl special of 2 pizzas and chicken wings and a Coke, right? Had to come from you. It can't have come from anywhere else. So I'm a bigger believer in where you need tracking, use offers to track, not fancy technology. Ryan says, looking for a very attractive lead magnet idea for a 2 coastal local small HVAC company looking for more change outs and service work. All comments are very appreciated. Okay, I'm going to give you the big idea behind lead magnets. I'm going to give you guys so that hopefully this will be useful to all of you guys in all situations. Lead magnets are just a digital way for somebody to raise their hand with curiosity, say, I'm interested, tell me more. And the best way, I learned this from Nicholas Kushmitchell, by the way, he says, the best way to show somebody you can actually help them is by actually helping them. So like your lead magnet, this is a thing that evades most people. Is most people are thinking, how do I get people to sign up and give me their email address? And so they create a lot of these low value kind of downloads, or like a 300-page ebook automated with ChatGPT that nobody's going to read. And what Nicholas said is, like, this is in some ways your free sample. Like if you go to Costco and they want to sell you more pizza, they give you a little bite-sized piece of the pizza, and you go, that's pretty good. Out of curiosity, what would it cost me to get your 27-box package? Because, Costco's going to have 27 boxes of it. So, for you, lead magnets are just really free samples. Now, he has an acronym that I found very useful that stands for short, actionable, goal-oriented, and educational. So, short, 15 minutes or less. Like, don't send somebody a fucking novel to read, because it'll just end up in hardware or inbox purgatory, as a downloaded PDF that, people are... We all have one of those. Let's just say that. A PDF you downloaded that eventually you're going to get around to reading, but not really. So short. Like something they can do in 10 or 15 minutes that will get them a small but meaningful result. Action-oriented, meaning you're designed, or it's intended to go do something. Goal-oriented, meaning it's actually designed to achieve something, and then education that helps you. Now, if you're trying to do installs, I don't know this market as well, so I'm just telling you where my mind goes to, but I would probably come up with something along the lines of, how to know if you need an install or just a basic repair. Sounds really, really simple, but if somebody's got an air conditioning system that's screwing up, or a heating and cooling system or a heating system that's screwing up, well, before they call the person, they probably want to know, is this going to be a $20,000 change the whole system over, or is this going to be a $200 repair, let me just change one little part. And ideally, they'd like to know how they should know whether or not it's one of those before they actually hire somebody. So you can be immensely useful and pre-sell your thing by just showing them essentially how to not get screwed by a contractor, and to know which ones are small repairs and which ones are hey, you're going to need a new system. And to make that very black and white, and again, it could be a short little 5-10 minute video. It could be a little PDF that says these 5 things mean you need a new system. All these other things mean it's probably just a small repair. And then adding more detail. If you need if it sounds like you're going to need a full repair, make sure to call us because of A, B, and C. And you can do that in a little 2-page PDF. So if I was going to do that intentionally, I would just like give them some valuable information on the thing they sell. Chances are they don't want to do it themselves, but like, you know, like where my head goes to is they probably don't want to be screwed in that process. So they probably want to know, like, you know, how can I tell that, like, you know, they're telling me the truth? In the same way that, like, if I was running this for a car mechanic where there's not like a lot of trust, I'd say, you know, like, which 5 engine sounds mean you got to replace it, and everything else that, you know, is just a small job to fix, right? And in the process, you're demonstrating your expertise, educating them. It's helpful, but it's also action-oriented, because if you actually need the repair, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. But no, for real, like, who are you going to call? Them, of course, right? So that's the kind of deeper idea behind it. So I hope that's helpful. Ryan number 2, this is different Ryan. He says, I'm a little confused when you typically send the 5-minute Loom video. Is it when a prospect asks, what do you do? And any help is very appreciated. So I did, again, I'm going to reference you guys back to a training I did on YouTube called Less But Better Agency Lead Generation. And the idea behind Less But Better is, the goal of this, like, somehow people have taken my Loom strategy to mean just like cold DM a bazillion people and tell them you got a video. And I actually believe step 1 of any sort of outbound marketing campaign you're going to do is to identify the people who spend all the money, which is actually an 80% elimination process. So like if I'm trying to pitch dentists, 80% of the upfront work is eliminating 80 out of 100 dentists who would never buy my shit in a million years. And let's just get them out of the way, and let's focus on the 20% who spend actively on marketing services in that marketplace. Same thing if you're doing e-commerce or real estate agents or, you know, online coaches or e-commerce, doesn't matter. So I think step 1 is actually eliminating the people who would never buy. And by the way, the easiest way to tell they would buy, they're buying now. Sounds so mind-numbingly simple, but the people who like buy are buying now. Cole says my Mexican internet is fucking up. That does not surprise me. Sorry, guys. So anyway, the first step in that, like I said, is eliminating. Now, the second step is when you want people to like actually check out your shit, there's a step I call the hand raiser. And the hand raiser is very simply a short summary of the offer. Now, I'm not a big fan of their actual promise and how they do their tactics, but the booked appointment bros have this figured out, because if you think about an offer as an outcome, it's very clear. We're going to get you 15, 30, 5, 50, 100 booked appointments. A very clear outcome. Compare that to people say, I'm going to do SEO. That's a wishy-washy outcome. I'm going to do Facebook ads. There's no outcome there. I'm going to, you know, create a website for you. There's no outcome there. So the first thing you want to do is like really think about an outcome that you can achieve with what it is you do with your service. And then you're simply offering people, saying, hey, I have a way to get you to that outcome, and I'd like to send you more information about it. Would you be interested in that? It sounds so simple, but that's how you get people to say, sure, tell me more about the video. And you can also do this as a post and have people come to you. Like you can go into LinkedIn community, a dentist, and say, hey, we figured out how to get teeth whitening patients. Who here would be interested in watching a video? And they'll comment, me. And then you just send, hey, here's that video. You were interested in getting teeth whitening patients. And then from there, it is just simply the Loom process. And the Loom process, by the way, is just the 80-20 of a sales call. That's all it is. It's never been anything else. After having done 1,000 sales calls, there's certain questions and milestones you get through. We're just doing them in fast forward in video. They want to know, you know, what is your shit about? So we answer that with a picture. They want to know, will this work for me in my situation? So we explain who it works for and who doesn't. They want to know how it works. So we explain to them how the actual process works in a couple of steps. They want to know how much is it. So we tell them how much it is. And then they want to know, how do I get it? And then we tell them how to get started. That's really all the Loom video process is. Those pieces put together. So having said that, if you're stuck for like, how do I get people to talk about my video? Like think about an outcome that would be desirable to your people. A small but meaningful outcome that you can actually do, and put that into a video and have people say, hey, would you be interested in watching a video about getting this outcome? And you'll be amazed that like some of the people, if they want the outcome, they'll watch the video. So that's really it in a nutshell. I know it sounds, but the actual most important step, believe it or not, is the step before it, when you figure out who are the people who spend all the money, because otherwise, like I use this example, but if you talk to the wrong people, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to overcome it. Same way, like imagine I got to sell pork sausages. I got like pork sausages, and I go to the Jewish Vegetarian Conference. Okay? You're going to sell dick fuck all. I don't care what your messaging is. I don't care what your copy is. I don't care how good the shit you say is. You're talking to people who don't buy pork. they don't eat meat, and they especially don't eat pork. So there's no sales you're going to make. Flip side of that is I used to work for the Toronto Blue Jays for one summer of my life. I was just a low-level usher at the stadium, took tickets and told people where to sit down. And I remember that outside of the stadium, they sell hot dogs and sausages and things like that, and every single vendor there crushes it because just like hot dogs and baseball and pork sausages just go together, right? So same exact offer, pork sausages brought to the baseball stadium audience will fare far better than the same offer at the Jewish Vegetarian Conference. So that's why I say, make sure you're talking to people who have a proven history of spending money, little short hand raised about an outcome they want. Video is the next evolution. It's just a sales process and fast forward. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope my Mexican internet got some of that through. I never really know anymore these days. That looks like it for all the questions we had. I just wanted to say, for those of you guys who are on my email list, I've been jamming on the fact that I think partners are a better way to get business than chasing it one-to-one. And I have an exact recipe and formula for how to do that step by step. For one, how to identify the partners in your space, and then how to put it all together kind of step by step for here's how to find them on Google, here's what to say to them, here's what you give them, and then here's what you do when that generates incoming business. And I mentioned this as a story for those of you guys who are just catching on now, but I used to see this in the personal injury space that a lot of lawyers, the way they marketed their business, instead of chasing clients one-to-one, they focused on partners. And so the personal injury lawyers, they found if somebody got in a car accident, they almost always did one of two other things. They would either get their body looked at, like a medical professional, or they would get their car looked at, mechanical professional. And so what they found is if they went after auto body shops and physiotherapists and chiropractors, those people not only could send them one client, but they could send them like literally hundreds, right? Like some of the auto body shops, they're fixing a car every 20 minutes, right? So like they can send a personal injury lawyer shitloads of business, shitloads. And so marketing to go get an auto body shop, to me, especially if you're just trying to scale and you're not trying to become like $100 million lawyer, you just want to build a 6-figure to low 8-figure kind of business. Like, just get a couple of partners. It's the fastest way to do it. And it's easier because nobody else is after them, right? Everybody else is advertising to the same end client. Nobody else is advertising to the person who sees those people every day. So for those of you guys who are interested, I've laid out exactly which kind of partners, how to do it, all that step by step. Should be here in your email. If you're not on the email list, you can check out our website, beyondagencyprofits.com. It is in the store. There's a section in there. You can click on like the menu, and there's a section for store. It's in there. But I'm a big believer in go get partners. Don't do all this bullshit everybody says you have to do. And I'll tell you 2 reasons. One is this is the vast majority of what's taught in our space. Like if you're trying to scale an agency, I basically see everybody say do one of 2 things. One is they say do a bunch of one-to-one cold outreach, which is massive amounts of fucking work, by the way. It's a serious grind. Or they say run Facebook ads. And I like Facebook ads, but people tend to leave out the part where usually you're going to lose $5,000 or $10,000 at least just trying to figure it out and get your ads working before you can scale them up. And still, you're probably going to end up with cold, skeptical people who don't know you anyway. As where when you do it this way with partners, they're endorsing you, so everybody who comes to you is like basically pre-sold in the same way that, if I say to you, if we're sitting together and you come to La Paz, Mexico, and you say, hey, what's the best Chinese restaurant? And I say, go to that place, Qinbao. They have the best Chinese restaurant. Like, you're sold on Qinbao before you even get there, right? And that's how you want people to come to you. Pre-sold that you are the real deal. So if you guys are interested in that, I tried to price it like giving the shit away because I want you guys to take it and to use it. And I mentioned this before, but we have people actually experiencing this now, which is hella exciting to me. But you can do $1 million a year with one partner. One partner, right? Like if you think about the injury attorney example, you don't need a lot of busy auto body shops to refer you clients to be to do that. Anyways, it sounds like my internet is shit. I hope this some of this was usable. Appreciate you guys. Much love. Happy Monday, and may the force be with you. Guys, if you like this video, you're also going to want to grab some free bonuses, which you can get at our website, Beyond Agency Profits. To make it easy for you, I've put the links to it in the description of this video, as well as pinned in the top comment. And we've got a couple of awesome things. This is what you'll get after you sign up. You get some of our best training, how we're closing clients over Loom videos, how we sometimes sign clients that is not a misprint for under $5 US, how to demonstrate your value in like amazing ways, trainings, how to have your clients write the best copy of your life, how we're closing without phone calls, campaigns that we've generated for clients that have done over $100,000, as well as scripts you can use to get conversations going with clients in under 10 minutes. All you got to simply do is go there, enter your name and email address, and then this is what you'll see on the other side. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to click the links below, and I will see you on the other side.